Last time on the WizardCast.
Brian, why are you wearing a parka?
Oh, hi, Mark. Yeah, I'm dressing up for the Summer 21 release.
Right, then shouldn't you be wearing, shorts and a dad hat and not a freaking heavy coat and a scarf and a woolly bobble hat?
Oh, God, that water's good. No, I'm dressing in solidarity for Southern Hemisphere listeners. It's winter down there.
Yeah. No, actually, that's quite admirable, Brian. I'm all for globalization, but, it is summer up here. Where we are right now, it's June.
Is it? I mean, I completely lost track.
It's almost 85 degrees where you're at, in Wisconsin.
Celsius?
No, that would be 185 Fahrenheit. You would be dead. Or barbecue.
We're 302 degrees Kelvin.
You're missing the point, Brian. If you don't take that stuff off...
I can't take it off.
Why?
Because I'm not wearing anything underneath.
Brian? Brian? You unconscious? Yeah, you're unconscious.
And now the conclusion of the WizardCast.
I'm Brian Kwong.
And I'm Mark Ross.
We're Salesforce experts that love talking about technology and Salesforce.
We also love humor. Doesn't mean we're actually good at it.
In the Salesforce community, I'm known as the Salesforce Wizard, likely due to me wearing a wizard hat at Salesforce events.
And I'm known as Salesforce Yoda for pretty much the same reason.
You should see the ears.
We have a passion to help educate and entertain people.
So we've joined forces to create WizardCast.
We've got tips and best practices.
We talk with interesting people.
All mixed with quote-unquote jokes and humor.
Welcome to the WizardCast. What is brown, hairy, and wears sunglasses?
Baby bear in Hawaii.
No, coconut on vacation.
I think mine's better. And cuter. But mostly better.
Welcome to the intro that I didn't actually remember to write for our intro, but it is the Summer 21 release as of a few weeks ago.
Well, you know what? It just so happens you're introducing it. So congratulations. There's your intro. Way to go.
Oh, great. I should write that down so
never mind. Let's just move on. I think if we optimize our time by not writing down things we've already done, then I think that would be better for everybody.
That sounds so weird coming from a person who writes documentation for life. Anyways, standard protocol stands. The release notes are long. Hundreds of pages long.
They're gonna be.
We did not read all of them.
No.
And you probably shouldn't read all of them, but what you should definitely do is at least read that start section of what features are coming out when, because that kind of gives you a nice big overview, and it gives you an idea of what you want to drill down. That's what Mark and I did.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about mostly like the general Salesforce items. We're not going to talk about things like add-ons. And we're going to focus on flow because that's what we do.
So essentially, don't rely on us for everything.
Right. If you've got an add-on product, don't rely on us for everything anyway. We are not that dependable. I mean, look at our release schedule. So shall we go ahead and hop into the general stuff from the release notes?
That's a great topic.
Right. And speaking of topics, you can now enable topics for objects in Lightning. This was a thing that's existed for a long time in Classic, and it just must have been low on the priority list for bringing over to Lightning. I can't imagine why. Maybe because not many people use it. But for the people that do use it, this is a godsend. This is going to be a really big thing because I know some people, they had entire reports
built off of topics.
Yes, exactly. It was a big deal. So now to get those back in Lightning.
It can be nice instead of having to create that pick list or that text field for everyone to kind of use basically what topics were used.
And the thing is, topics, I'm going to diverge just here for 1 second. Topics actually has a lot of potential. It just needs in my opinion, as a former user, like, it just needs a little bit more love and care and handling and features, and then it could actually be ridiculously powerful. But we'll see if that happens.
That's what we need in this day and time, is a little love and affection.
Indeed.
I'm sad to say that just before retirement, the PDF report for Salesforce Optimizer had an accident.
Was struck down in line of duty 3 days before retirement.
I don't even know what the PDF report for Salesforce Optimizer is. Do you?
No. Yeah, totally. I've used this. I've absolutely used this. This was a thing. I used this as a partner because it was something you could log into somebody's org and print out this report that pointed out, like, here's a bunch of problems that might exist
kind of like
this
the
org.
Lightning report that they. Are you ready for Lightning Experience? That type of thing.
But it was general optimization. Yeah,
I didn't realize. Okay,
and the PDF export ability is being retired. You have until the end of June to do that. Oh wait, well, How
about we talk about something that's actually there, which is recently viewed lists.
Yes, everybody knows they're recently viewed list views. Because they're super annoying when they're the first thing you see until you figure out, oh yes, I can actually pin another list view. But they can be quite useful. And it turns out now you can actually add custom actions to those. Apparently you did it before in Spring 21, but then they removed it and now it's back.
So things that are changing. In-app learning with Trailhead is now renamed to Learning Paths.
And let's make sure we identify the distinction here. In-app learning with Trailhead is not the same thing as in-app learning.
Or in-app guidance.
Or in-app guide. Right. I think that's more what I'm thinking about. You're right. In-app guidance is not the same thing as in-app learning with Trailhead. So that's now going to be called Learning Paths. And in-app guidance is still in-app guidance. And Learning Paths is going its own way. It's almost like it's taking its own path in life.
Through the woods.
To grandmother's house it goes. Either way, it's getting a lot more features. You can actually add due dates. There's a learning home, which is basically just a place where admins and other learning administrators can go and check out things on a higher level.
There's a beta to help track users' progress with reports.
Yep, going to get reports. Also, mention here of custom learning items so that you can actually track other things that you have in there, like other videos and tutorials and other resources. Doesn't have to be part of Trailhead.
So for some of us, we've been using Einstein Search for quite some time, to the point where I didn't even realize it was still considered beta. It's now GA, and it's now available in Essentials.
Which, that's a big step. That's really important for people who are on Essentials. And there are a few other incremental improvements. One that I wanted to call it in particular, because one of the things that is part of Einstein Search, which is pretty cool, is the natural language search. So you can literally type
my opportunities this month.
My opportunity, exactly. And it recognizes, like, you don't have to have like a list view or a report called my opportunities this month. It recognizes my and this month as language and actually like will work with those. So now it's actually going to support non-English languages for that natural language search. I think there are some things it still can't do specifically. The documentation has a list of the things it can and can't do, or can and can't recognize, rather. Specifically, accounts, cases, contacts, leads, opportunities, even if they have a different name, a non-English name, they can now be recognized as well. The names of those accounts, cases, contacts, leads, opportunities.
One feature I've actually used a lot and really appreciate is the automatically add a field to the customer report types when you're creating that field.
Yes.
It's a simple checkbox. I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't want to have the field added to the customer report types, but I know it's saved me lots of times because if I'm doing something on behalf of customers now, I don't have to go back through and say, do they have customer report types using this object that I have to remember to add that field to?
And that you said you've been using it, but now it is
generally available.
Yeah, which means they probably squashed some bugs and made it more usable in general. This is something, I used to use this in Classic. Dashboards, you now have the ability to actually save a dashboard as a graphic file, specifically a PNG, a PNG, if you will. And so that way it will allow you to capture those for use in things like PowerPoints, emails if you know you're going to go down that route. Some people are going to be like, oh, why would you do that? If you're taking people out of the dashboard, then it's no longer live data. Yes, you're absolutely right, but maybe there are people who don't have access to the dashboard, or maybe you need to get that to people outside of your system.
Or you don't need the most active data because you wanted to show what it looked like in a previous
At a
period.
certain point in time. Yep, exactly. Some sort of snapshot almost.
I'm really happy that the reason why someone has access to a record is finally available in Lightning.
Oh, man.
I remember that being on that little Lightning roadmap like years ago, thinking, why isn't this further up the list? It's there now.
So first off, it says it's available only for accounts, opportunities, cases, contacts, leads, and custom objects.
So almost everything.
What it will do is it will show a list of the users, and then you can just click view next to the user's name, and then it will list all the ways in which that user has access. Like they have it specifically granted to this user. They have it because they're part of this group. And what level of access they're given for each of those different types of interactions, the types of relationships.
Mobile. Specifically, the Trailhead community is now accessible on mobile.
So tell me about this, Brian, because I haven't tried to log into the Trailblazer, the Trailhead, any of the nomenclature community on mobile before. What happened if you did it before?
It didn't work.
Is there an app now? What is
No,
this?
yeah, it's with the app, like with the Trailhead app. So like, right.
Okay.
So for example, if I get an email and I open the email on my phone, it's for, hey, check out this post that was made in this chatter group you're a member of. And I hit view, it will take me to the app and it's actually loading that in the app. It's actually really nice because I've been having a lot of challenges getting into the Trailhead community on my desktop. Due to OAuth problems because of all the different orgs I'm constantly in and out of all day long. But now I'm able to get in with just my phone and I don't have any problems. It's nice.
Nice. Very nice. Speaking of mobile, they also have Einstein Search now working on mobile, at least generally available.
That's cool.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. You get full functionality on the mobile as well. Other things that are generally available, campaign members.
Yeah, well, that you can track the accounts as if like campaign members. So campaign members traditionally were for leads and contacts, and now you can basically create a campaign member for an account, which is really helpful for when you want to do something like, I have these top 10 accounts that are my target, and I want to know which of those accounts had involvement with the campaign. You, instead of having to go through and do the loop with, let's look at all the contacts in the account or everything like that. If you go, hey, I have a match, you can just add the account directly to the campaign, and now you have it in one stop.
Nice. One more thing that's generally available now is the integration with Microsoft Teams, which is apparently a thing that's happening
Which
with
team?
Salesforce.
Are we talking about like the developer team at Microsoft?
No. The app made by Microsoft called Microsoft Teams. I mean, do you have a Microsoft? You have a Windows machine. I'm amazed you don't see it every time you boot up the machine. It bugs you to use Microsoft Teams. Do you not have that? It does that to me.
My secret is I never boot up the machine. It's always on.
See, there you go. Microsoft Teams is a thing that exists. It's very similar to Slack, which is what makes this an odd thing. Random tangent here. Well, not so random. Tangent here. They recently showed off the upcoming Windows 11, which is due out later this year. It has Teams fully integrated even for non-business users. It's like they've replaced Skype and lumped it, like made it simple like Google Chat and built it directly into Windows. And that's Microsoft Teams. It's like Slack and chat style functionality. So now Salesforce is going to have an integration with that. So, okie doke. With the Slackwisition that Salesforce has going on, it's kind of an odd thing that we're going to have Teams. But I guess, let's be open. Sure, why not?
I have a feeling we need to put a forward-looking statement down here for you.
Well, it's an ongoing Slackwisition. Anything could happen.
Anything could happen.
It could go south.
Which is maybe why they did the integration with Teams, because anything can happen.
Maybe. Well, and that's the thing. It's generally available. So clearly it's been going for some time.
Yeah. It's a need. Someone decided because there's plenty of people that use Microsoft.
Yeah, very true. Very true. All right, what else we got?
How about something as simple as the fact that if you use accordion or tab components on your Lightning page and you hide them, they stay
in dynamic
hidden.
forms?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They stay hidden.
Yeah.
Regardless if it's create, edit, or cloning.
Yeah, I can't imagine how annoying that must have been. Mass actions can now be done in split view.
I love split view. I use split view a lot.
I've always liked it, but it's never quite worked right. And maybe it's because I haven't tried it in Lightning. And when I say worked right, I meant no, it functions the way it's supposed to. It just never, to me, didn't meet my work streams. And maybe that's me. I use console still to this day. When I'm doing my work in the Salesforce org, keeping track of my work items and things like that, I use console. Everybody else looks at me like, what the hell are you doing? Why do you have console on? Maybe this is that sort of thing.
Yeah, get with the times, man.
So split view is the new console? Is that what you're telling me?
It's just different. It's because split views works really well with things like your list view, where you're going down a list of things.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So in my day and age, I tend to be working with a lot of support cases for customers. I'm reviewing and going through all, 15, 20 cases at a time. It's a lot easier to use split view than to have the thing open a new tab every single time and go back to the list view. It's just click, look, click, look, click.
I find it interesting. No, you know what? I'm going to let that go because that's a bit too forced. I was going to make a jab about, you said, in my day and age, and I was going to make a jab about you being old.
Says the one who's still using console.
What else we got? Emails. Got a bunch of email stuff. Can you tell us about some email stuff?
You can include email template attachments automatically in packages and chain sets, which doesn't really apply to me. But it's... No, this is really... For anybody who's ever had to do, because this is the thing. If you create an email template with an attachment, you could deploy it.
Yeah, or an image that's part of the template, right? That's an attachment.
Right, I get it. I just stopped using chain sets, so it's not a need for me. But it's nice.
Change sets are slowly being improved. Yeah, I don't know anything about how it's being improved because I'm not in that department.
Therefore, how do you know they're slowly being improved?
I don't know. Well, I guess I don't know.
You go.
What I'm going off of is evidence by things like this. The fact that this is now a thing. And the fact that the community... if we were to go up to a random Salesforce user and say, how do you feel about change sets? They'd probably hiss at us and make some sort of symbol to ward us off.
You're making the assumption that you don't even know what a chain set is.
Well, that's true, because many people just ignore the fact altogether because everybody else tells them that it sucks.
Or they're producing in production, yeah. Anyways.
Anyway... But it's pretty cool to have this.
Welcome to the two old guys making random comments.
What? No. Look, I like my console, and you'll take my console, you'll pry it out of my cold, dead hands. Moving on. Did I mention I just turned 40?
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm old now.
I'm still older than you. It's okay.
I'm old, you're older.
I'm so old that my wife has to remind me how old I am because I forget. Let's talk about fixing things that we can actually fix.
Like email builder templates?
Sure.
So no, actually, we're looking at the thing that says fix email builder templates easily. And it's what it actually is in the template builder, the email template builder, they're actually now, when you don't have things entered correctly into the fields, it'll properly throw up errors showing you why it's wrong. More of a intuitive, helpful experience instead of just, oh, hey, this broke.
That's how I got by, darn young kids with their error handling. Speaking of email templates, you can now add flair with web-safe fonts.
These damn kids.
Now, I'm not sure what a web-safe font is, Mark. Is that basically where there's a netting that's holding a whole bunch of bank safes?
No. Web-safe font is a font that one can assume is going to be part of any given operating system and or browser. In other words, it is safe to define a page as rendering in this font because
It will
you can
actually
assume
work.
it's going to be everywhere. Yeah. So what this is basically saying is you can actually define these web-safe fonts in email templates. So you can say, I want my email to be in this font, assuming it's a web-safe font. You can also do things like rich text in Template Builder because we have this ability now. So that's going to add a lot of different styling and functionality to emails that come out of Email Template Builder as opposed to just plain text or unremarkable text. Plain text is an actual thing. That's different. What?
No, we're so far gone.
Yeah.
So you remember that email message object that came out a while ago? You and I kind of hashed it back and forth and tags versus email message. Now you can report on email message.
Which is actually good.
Which is great.
Like, even though I don't remember that it exists, but it's actually good. Because
it was a while ago.
It was a while ago. Because, I think. I don't actually know. Because I don't actually remember. But the thing is, we can actually report on emails that have been sent out. And you can do it in Salesforce. This isn't a Pardot thing. This isn't any other like add-on. This is specifically like emails that get sent from Salesforce, and you can run reports on it.
Yeah, so like or emails that are coming in through email to case.
Yeah, exactly. Other email stuff. Got a bunch of email stuff. We got to get through this because we got flow still to do. Send multiple emails that have a unique template with a single macro. This is service specific because it's macros. But the idea is that now with the macros, you can actually send an email to multiple recipients with a single email template. So this will actually let you have, a customized template, a customized message, a specific message, and send that out on bulk to all the people affected by a specific issue or however you are managing your bulk macro emails. And one last thing we've got from service, case email alerts will now thread in the case feed in with everything else. There's a specific thing you have to enable, I believe.
Yep.
And you have to set up some other things like you have to automate a case action with Process Builder or Flow or something like that. But then when that email actually sends that email alert out, that sent out email will thread into your case feed. So we can actually see that there was communication that existed and was sent out as part of the overall timeline of events for a case.
Now, I'm going to add something.
Yeah.
Just so people realize that the threading is based on what people are actually sending the email and what are they replying to. So if you have a bunch of people who are emailing back and forth and you have someone who replies to an earlier message in the thread, you're not going to see the threading exactly right. Okay?
Same as it ever was, though.
Yeah, it's basically, it will work like email anywhere else.
Right, exactly.
All right.
It's standard behavior.
So let's go take off. Let's talk about pilots.
Okay. How many pilots are there? Are there 21 pilots?
I'm sure there's a lot, but I only put 2 in the notes for us to talk about.
Oh, okay. Well, fine. We'll just talk about 2 pilots. Somehow doesn't roll off the tongue as well.
Maverick
so that's
and Goose.
fine. You don't need any others.
Yeah.
Those, you stop with those 2 and you're good.
So anyways, talk to me, Goose.
Why do I have to be Goose? I want to be Maverick. Okay. We've got a dynamic actions bar on your app page. Actually, you talk about this. I can talk more about the other one. You talk about this one. I'm taking the second one.
You could have a dynamic actions bar.
I said that.
Well, I didn't know if you wanted to cut it or not. Oh, look. It's another component called dynamic actions. And guess what it's going to hold? Actions. Dynamically. So you could have a bar with a bunch of actions in it, and you can add visibility to it to turn on and off the buttons. So you ever said, I really like actions, but it would be really nice if those actions were someplace else other than the top of the page? Well, guess what?
Yay!
In the pilot, now you can. Now, of course, this is a pilot. And like all pilots, in my opinion, it's not production ready.
Right.
But it's a great thing to know about. And like all pilots, you may or may not be able to get in the pilot. Your account executive is the best person to talk to.
Yeah.
But it looks pretty darn cool.
In some cases, might be the only person to talk to. I know that's how it is for some pilots. They literally are like, no, you have to, if you don't even have an account executive, you're out of luck.
All right.
Like,
now that we've had the ghost, let's take a look at the gander.
Okay. Flow orchestrator. This is a thing. This is a whole thing. I could probably, we should get Alex on the show at some point.
We'll do a whole episode on Flow. It's so cool.
It's one of those things where if you've seen people talking about it at Dreamforce, you could very easily be like, okay, I just listened to someone talk about Orchestrator for 5 minutes. I have no idea what it is. And that's understandable. Essentially, the idea is that it is a multi-step process that can contain multiple flows, but lives in one component on your page. And that single component can theoretically show different orchestrations depending on different scenarios.
We're going to do an example here, okay?
Yeah.
So here's an example. And I'm going to steal this from Andy Schmeeken, who did this for a demo for our user group over at Madison. So hi, Andy. Thank you. Let's say we have 3 parties involved. We have a new employee, we have an HR manager, and we have someone who was in IT. As an employee, I need to provide some information to HR. HR then needs to review it and say, yes, this is good, and approve it. At that point, after HR says it's okay, the employee can go through and select devices like their laptop or phone, and which then needs to go over to IT to get approved. Okay, so we could use this in Flow Orchestrator, where we would have an initial stage where one flow would be assigned to the employee, another flow would be assigned to the HR manager, and then it could be living on the same record. So the employee and the HR manager could look at the same record, but the employee will see the flow that has been assigned to him through Orchestrator. And once he completes that flow, it goes to the next step of the stage, which is HR needs to review it, and the HR manager will now see their flow. And once they approve it, then another flow will get called and assigned to the employee and open up so they can go through and say, okay, these are the devices I want. And that ends up setting a flow to go to the IT manager. So think of a series of screen flows that are tied together by some sort of common process where you have multiple people involved and they're all kind of passing it back and forth. And instead of having to manually have to say, okay, Mark, now that you've finished your flow on as an employee, I'm going to send an email message to the HR manager to click a link to go click a button to launch the next flow. You don't have to do that. It's all quote unquote automatic.
And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, that sounds a lot like approval processes, you're right. It does. This is definitely the sort of thing that it is not approval processes 2.0, but you'd be forgiven for thinking of it that way.
There's no record locking or anything at this point.
Right. And one other big difference that I do have to point out is that this is a pilot, but once it is GA, it is most likely not free.
You mean most likely not included in your standard licensing fee?
Thank you. That's
but we
actually
don't know. There's been no pricing announced.
No, there has not. And I don't want to talk about the potential plans out there because who knows what they're actually going to settle on. I've heard a couple things, but I don't want to get into it because I don't want to get in trouble.
For those who've been kind of following the change in the automation over the last, 5 years, do you remember Shelley Ursig and Bill Takis when they were PMs for Flow and they were talking about the automation home, the one place for automation, approval process and everything? Flow Orchestrator kind of looks like that.
Kinda.
It kind of looks like one place to marry a whole bunch of automation together.
Right, but it's with specific purpose. Like each orchestration is a business process.
Correct.
That then gets split out into multiple flows that each get called in turn, that get assigned to specific people, but displayed in a single window, a single window pane is how I think of it because it's a single component on a record page.
And if you want to see it, there's a really nice demo that Alex did at Trailhead X, and it's recorded. You just have to log in and register. If you aren't already registered, it was on the automation or Meet the Automation team session.
If you prefer to read instead of watch videos, there's a bunch of stuff on unofficialsf.com about it as well. Just keep in mind, one, that is an unofficial website, not an official one. And two, this is a pilot. As Brian said earlier, it is not ready for production prime time. It is something to mess around with. Like, for example, right now, each step in the flow can only be assigned to one user. a specific user by username. You can't assign it to a group.
Or a variable.
Or a variable, exactly. So that's coming
Pilot.
at some point. Pilot, yeah. Again, we'll probably have more talk about Orchestrator in the future because it is really cool. Once you actually understand it, we'll just see how it hits.
And one step above Pilot is Beta. Now, Beta is technically better than Pilots in the sense that they're more fleshed out, but they may have features missing. And in many cases, I usually do not recommend using beta features in production.
Right.
There's always been a couple, exceptions to that kind of rule for me. But generally speaking, regardless, you should always test everything out in Sandbox because, one, they may not do what you want it to do. And two, it's a beta feature, so things may actually change substantially between beta and generally available that we can't foresee. And that sometimes can cause challenges for people. But one of the big ones is being able to update fields from a report page, meaning you're viewing the report, you ran a report,
crap.
and now you can update a field like you could with inline editing of a list view. Now, this is a feature that you do have to contact support to enable.
Oh, that's a big flag for this is beta.
But yeah, this is beta.
As the kids would say, that's beta AF.
Yeah, because the things that I would be concerned with this is just making sure that just because someone sees the report doesn't necessarily mean they should be able to edit fields from that report, from a security standpoint. Mm-hmm. Beta feature.
There's also a lot of different field types that aren't supported by this, like pick lists.
Yep, but it's a pretty cool direction.
I'll be very interested in seeing where this goes. Restriction rules. If you like permission sets, hey, here's the opposite.
Now, here's the thing. In my perspective, restriction rules fit a very niche use case, right? Where you have a situation of, I need to be able to view everything except for in this type of circumstance.
And actually, I think I have misstated. I don't think it's the opposite of permission set. It looks like it's more the opposite of role-based sharing.
Kind of.
Because it looks like it restricts access to subsets of records.
Right.
Not like entire objects.
So it would be for an example of saying, I should be able to see the account, but I shouldn't necessarily see the tasks on that account. Making it so like if I don't own a task,
That's
even
huge.
if I can see the parent, I shouldn't be able to see that task.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that now. That's oh man, I can't tell you. I've had customers that were like, why is this like this? This is ridiculous. We need better control. Because if you had access to an account, you could literally see every subtask assigned to that account, every event, and it was they were like, no, we have different people who have different access. We don't want them to see everything.
Again, beta feature.
Yeah, again, beta feature.
However, I'm really excited for folks who are running HIPAA compliance within a Salesforce org. This can help them immensely.
Exactly. Speaking of permissions, though, this is another beta. It's kind of cool. You can actually now set an expiration date for permission set and permission set group assignments.
Oh, that's silly. Why would you want to do that, Mark?
Well, I mean, maybe you don't want to give somebody, access to a specific thing and then you forget to revoke their access later. Or, maybe you're like, you know what, I'm going to give you access to this, but only for 24 hours, and then I'm turning it off, and then you don't turn it off because you never intended to. It was just a lie, but, you don't want them to be messing with it too much. Not that this ever happened.
No.
To me. Did that ever happen to you, Brian?
I always turn off everything on a timely fashion. Yes. Okay.
Sure.
But I mean, like, maybe there's this business process where you're going to allow people to edit certain types of records, but come a certain time frame, you got to lock it down for compliance purposes.
Right.
So you can give people permission, and then instead of removing the permission set or removing the profile permission, it just expires and they can no longer do it.
What else we got? It looks like, I think the rest of the stuff is flow.
Welcome to betas and flow. Fields. Screens.
Fields and screens. Wait, where are we?
Beta. Place fields from your Salesforce objects or flow screens. Instead of having to fake it, you can actually put the field from your S-object record variable resource directly on the screen.
Yeah, okay. So let me explain this here for a sec. Here's the deal. The way this works is if you have, let's say an account field, how do you represent that in Flow now? Well, you have to make on the screen, whatever it is, a text, a pick list, you have to checkbox, whatever they are. And then you have to actually manually define, here's all these things, blah, blah, blah. What's the name? What's the default value? What's the help text? And then you have to later on go assign, okay, we're going to go ahead and put whatever they entered here into the thing with the update records, into the record. With this, you can cut out a lot of those steps. You can put in, at this point, this is probably going to change.
Beta.
Safe harbor. At this point, you have to use a record variable. But let's say if you want it to be an account field, then you just make an account record variable. And because that provides the structure the system needs. Anyway, you put in a record variable and it sees, all right, this is account. Give me all the list of all the account fields, and I can add that directly to the screen without having to manually define in all of that stuff. And then when I do an update records later, it will know what field we're talking about and push that in. It's pretty cool. There are some limitations, like when you have to use record variable instead of just being, I just want to pick account and go and see my account fields. Okay, we have to do a record variable right now. And the other thing is that it doesn't support every field type. You're going to see a lot of things missing because, pick lists and other certain types are not available. But it should help a lot of people save a lot of steps
I loved
in
it.
the long run.
I love it already. For those who have been using the beta and auto layout, I'm going, I wonder why auto layout's still in beta. Well, one of the reasons was you couldn't create a schedule path with the auto layout.
And now you can. Exactly.
Yay!
What's a schedule path, Brian? He asks as if he didn't know.
It's like a time-based action.
Which is what now?
To say, hey, this record's been created 1 hour later, go do a bunch of other stuff.
Excellent. Next, we have another beta, the larger auto layout canvas. This is basically just we expanded the size of the canvas because auto layout is one big vertical strip for the most part, right? So eventually, you're going to hit the limit if you got a really long flow, so they went ahead and increased the size of that. There's one more beta. It's down in the debugging section. Why don't we go ahead and cover that now?
Debugging's awesome.
Because speaking of auto layout, we now can debug flows while we're in auto layout. Again, this is beta, but it gives you the option of seeing...
Yeah, it shows the path of the flow.
It shows, yes. Isn't that cool? When they came up with that, and I saw that when it was being developed, I was like, oh, that's so pretty.
So
nice. It will actually show you the path that took when you access the debug state. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Yep, it looks so cool that for my user group presentation, I had to make up elements that did absolutely nothing just so I could show the yellow line as it went through and highlighted things. That's how cool I thought it was.
There's so much stuff in this release. Flow is a marvelous release.
Flow's huge. But let's keep going on the debugging thing because one of the biggest things, and my gosh, I'm so happy, is you can now debug a record trigger flow.
Yes.
And the way that it's done is so cool. Instead of having to input an ID or something like that, you can actually specify the record that you want to use in the debug when you run the debugger, which is so neat.
Yeah. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't have to put in the ID of the record.
No, it's you actually type the name in and you do a lookup, it's a lookup field.
Yeah.
And
so
it gives you the option to skip the entry criteria. So if you have a record triggered flow that only runs when a field is equal to 1, 2, 3, you can say ignore that, just run it for that record.
Other debugging stuff. There is a new failed flow interviews list view,
which is nice,
that you can get to. So you can literally see, without having to go dig up in your email inbox and hope that the email went to you and not to the other person who was working on the flow recently, you can actually go to a master list of failed flow interviews and see them from Salesforce, and actually click it and go and see the debug messages, the path it took, all that good stuff in Flow Builder just by clicking the flow interview that failed. So cool.
Very cool.
What else we got?
You can debug flows after a pause element.
Yep.
Right.
So you can simulate that pause and simulate the return conditions.
You can see when transactions are actually committed in the debug.
Tell me a bit more about that.
So there's a little section in the debug window that tells you, hey, if records that were in the flow that were ready to create or update or deleted are committed, and you can kind of see what actually happened in there.
It tells you that at this point things were committed.
Yeah. So like if a flow fails, you can debug that flow and you can see whether the record changes were saved or essentially not saved.
Nice. Flow error emails are now easier to find.
Just having that little link to open up and see the debugger is nice.
Basically, it's just when the email is sent to you for the error, it now lists the label of the flow, not the API name. So it can be a bit easier to navigate. Pretty simple. We also have the one-button debug as well.
One button to rule them all, and in the flow bind them?
Because previously we had the debug on canvas was a separate button from just debug, which was the old debug behavior, and now it's instead no. Now you just get the good behavior on a single button, and it's called debug.
And that's it for flow, right? Nothing else happened?
No, there's a lot more, actually. Sorry, we're not done.
I want to talk multi-columns, though. Because this was beta, and now it's generally available, and it's so darn cool. It's a new component you put on your screen that essentially splits your screen that used to have just one long column into up to 4 columns. And you can specify the width of each column, and it uses a pick list. And it's really neat because, and I tried really, really hard to break it. If you change the width of one column, it adjusts the other columns accordingly. So you cannot get really weird widths on the screen, like go wider than what the screen actually is. It will not let you. It's too smart.
Yeah.
I tried really hard.
When I saw the developers, like all the care they were putting into all this, making sure people didn't break it, I was like, oh man, somebody's going to have fun trying to take this apart. And it was you.
I spent 2 hours trying to break it. Yes. Yeah.
No, they tried really hard to cover everything.
So bravo, Daz. Bravo.
And one thing I want to point out is that, we had multi-column previously, but it applied to the entire screen. And that's not what this is. This is a component you put on your flow screen, but you can add more than one. And you can set the number of columns and the width of those columns differently. So you can have on a single flow screen multiple sections that you've dragged your fields into. So you can have, here's my first 9 fields.
They're in 2 to 3.
They're in 3 columns, and then the next 4 fields are in 2 columns, and they're all on the same screen.
Yeah.
And it's glorious.
Instead of having one really long full screen where you can now compact things and pair fields up, it's great.
Love it.
Tell me what else has changed, Mark.
What has changed has changed. This is specific behavior for start elements and decision elements. You can now use is changed as an operator. So in other words, if a value has changed, then you can that's your criteria that you're defining for whether to proceed in the start element or the decision element. Now, of course, this is only for record triggered flows because they're the only ones that have the ability to see if something has changed.
But it's making it one step closer for us to ditch process builder entirely and go to flow.
I didn't say that. You said that, not me. What else do we have?
Well, you also get is new and prior value in record trigger flow formulas. In addition to is changed.
Prior value in formulas. I said formulas. Formulas. That sounds like a bug in Labyrinth. Formula. I'm in a weird space right now.
Yes,
so you are. Pretty simple. You can use is new and prior value. Love it. What else we got?
Default values for screen components with choices.
Choices. You know what? Choices just blew up. Just talk about choices for a while, Brian.
So in Flow, choices were kind of like the equivalent of a single pick list value. So if you're going to build a pick list or a radio button, you would create a choice for one value. And it kind of sucked.
Kinda?
Yeah.
It entirely sucked.
Yeah. In addition to that, you couldn't set a default value. There was no none equivalent value, so you would have to create your own choice called none, which means you couldn't make a pick list required because there was no none. It was just filled in. So now there is a none option for like a pick list, a drop down. And you can default a value that's ridiculously easy. It just says, hey, choose this. But it gets better than that when we're talking about choices. Mark, you want to pick up on the next one? What would you do, Mark, right now if you created a pick list and go, oh, that would really work better as a radio button?
Oh, I'd have to delete the whole component, completely start over from scratch. And if I had a whole bunch of choices, then I'd have to redo all of them. What?
That's terrible. So yeah, now you can actually switch between the components when you're building it. It's really cool. It's like
you can
really,
literally
really
make a
cool.
pick list and then be like, no, I want that to be a checkbox group. Boom. Done.
Yeah, no more recreating. It's fantastic. That was the other thing I tried breaking. Like I swapped back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I could not break that either.
There actually is a thing you can't do. I think you can't go from a single to a multi or
Correct.
the other way around.
Yeah, it's basically from pick list to a radio.
Yeah. Or checkbox. If you're already in multi-select, you can go to multi-select radio, multi-check, and you can swap those. Sorting.
And limit.
Well, I mean, yeah. But
This
that's
is sort
the thing.
of cool.
Okay.
Come on, don't limit your enthusiasm.
What this is a new element. It's a new element.
A
Brand
new
flow
element on the periodic table of flow.
Sure, close enough. What this is you can actually pass a collection variable into this element, and you can say, all right, I want to sort it by this field, ascending or descending, and then boom, it spits it out. It just resorts the collection for you. And you can do this at any point in your flow, because wherever you place an element, right? So previously you'd have to loop through all sorts of nastiness in order to get this to work, and now you don't have to.
Or I've done it at the very beginning when you did a get record, yeah.
But then if you had to do it again later for a different reason, different kind of sort, yeah, exactly. So big help. Previewing is now better. Specifically when you're actually in Flow Builder and you're making a screen and you've got components on there. They did add some capability in previous releases to actually view the fields. And there were some things that it couldn't do. Specifically, a lot of the later screen components that couldn't be rendered. But now in Summer 21, even things like lookups, emails, dependent pick lists, those will now render in your preview as well, instead of just seeing no preview is available. Directly update your fields if you've got a record triggered flow.
So I have an account that was just updated, which causes my flow to get triggered. I can now update that account with just the update record flow. I don't have to do anything else.
Right, exactly. So it's kind of almost like workflow, because it's literally just when X happens, do Y, and that's
Close. Yeah. I mean, it's really neat simply because of the fact that it's almost like doing an Apex trigger in a sense, because you literally just say, hey, this record came in, here's what the values are, and you're done. And I've actually made flows now that are literally just a single element. It's crazy.
Awesome. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. You know what else I love, Brian?
What do you love, Mark?
Accessibility. I actually really do.
I do
it's
too.
not just a segue, because there are so many people who have needed, frankly, better accessibility in Flow Builder for a long time, and it's happening.
Especially if you're using something like a screen reader.
Yeah, exactly. This is now, screen readers are now better able to read a lot of things. Well, this is on the user level.
Yes.
It looks like,
which is where it needs to be.
but it also needs to exist on the admin level and
True.
Safe Harbor.
Safe harbor.
There are definitely improvements being made on the admin level as well for Flow Builder. So I'm very much looking forward to those things. But this release is user level stuff, better able to read flow screens. Just still really, really, really good to have.
And speaking of things that are kind of like quality of life, what do you think about that little eye that now shows up on a screen component if it has dynamic visibility on it?
Well, that's the thing, because we had that before in Lightning App Builder, right?
Right.
Whenever you apply conditional visibility to a component on Lightning App Builder, it would show the little eye to let you know, hey, this has conditional visibility on it. Now we have the exact same thing.
So much better than clicking into everything
in Flow Builder. Yes. Very big improvement for that sort of setup.
What about filtering read-only fields, Mark?
I don't actually know about this one.
You don't know about filtering read? I thought that was one you wrote. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't read this. I didn't write this one. I didn't write anything in the flow management subset this release.
Well, if you're creating or updating a record, the flow is going to automatically filter out things like system fields or other read-only fields that are on the record variable. So that way you wouldn't accidentally do something like, hey, that field is inaccessible in your flow error.
Well, yeah, exactly. If your variable, because you pulled all the fields, just so happens to contain the created by field, and you can't edit that, but you do an update records and it creates the created by field, your flow error is out because it's like, I can't update this field. Even though you have the exact same data, it still tries to update this read-only field. This is now saying, nah, you know what? We know this is a read-only field. We know what you're trying to do here. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, this used to be something you can turn on, but now it's just permanently enabled. Assuming your flows are running API, 52? So basically the summer release.
Right, yeah, 52, the summer release. Also, there's something here with associated objects.
When you had a time-based action in a flow, a scheduled action in a flow, it would list out in the list, but you had no idea what the object was that flow had paused on. So if you're trying to find out and do a debug and say, hey, there's a problem I have to fix, or I need to cancel something, you couldn't do that because you couldn't see what the object was to help narrow it down.
And I think that's it. Now, again, we haven't covered everything, but, we covered flow pretty in depth, and anything else that we thought, what's our damage? We also tried to cover all the things that we thought were kind of generally applicable to a wide audience, but definitely go check out the release notes yourself. Take the time, print them out, pour a cup of tea, get a highlight. What? Why would you not print out 500 pages of release notes?
Tell you what, if you have
spend an evening.
If you have a pile of bamboo paper, knock yourself out. Worry about the electricity and the toner as your footprint.
Is bamboo paper compatible with printers?
It can be.
I honestly don't know. Like the only
bamboo paper I have is not usable on printers and only for one aspect of the body.
No, I was about to say the exact same thing. It was like my only experience with bamboo paper at all is bamboo toilet paper.
Well, I have paper towels too.
Oh, okay. Well, just the same. I don't think I'm not going to put bamboo toilet paper in my printer. I don't think that's going to work.
But, I have bamboo sheets, so totally
bamboo
feasible.
Sheets of paper?
No, bamboo sheets as in bed sheets.
Oh, are you going to put those in a printer?
I could, I suppose. However, bamboo paper is an actual thing.
Now this raises an interesting question. Could you fit the entire release notes on a set of sheets? I mean, you'd have to use front and back.
What font size?
So we're talking duplex. I mean, probably king, because queen, double
bed sheet size, font size. I mean, it would still have to be pretty small. You're talking about a few, 600 pages or so.
Sure. So 6 point, size it down. But could you do it?
This podcast has really jumped the shark. WizardCast is produced by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, directed by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, technical administration by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, script writing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, audio editing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, website maintenance by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, and our intern this episode was Emily Hirsch.
Follow us at WizardCast_pod on Twitter, and perhaps we'll select you as a potential esteemed member of our intern pool.
Speaking of, Emily, where's our caffeinated beverages?
I'll take decaf. Have a joke, interview suggestion, or other comments? Let us know. You can call and leave a voice recording at 608-492-0321 or email wizardcast@thewizardnews.com.
And do you have an idea on the XD Exchange that you would like to hear us talk about and maybe even strong arm a PM to talk about?
Go to bit.ly/idea highlight to submit that idea to us.
Don't forget to subscribe to the WizardCast and receive our next episode automatically.
Please post reviews on Apple Podcasts or the podcast app of your choice and share this episode. It helps others to hear what you've just had to endure.
Once again, I'm Brian.
And I'm going to, go out on a limb here and say that we're a little bit extra punchy because clearly we haven't recorded one of these in a while.
Really? That's going to be your pithy thing at the end?
I told you, we haven't done this in a while. I'm out of practice.
Thanks for listening. Really?
What?
It's perfectly fine.
That's a solid B+ outro. Solid B+.
Ladies and gentlemen, why Mark is gone. I don't have anything. I was going to say something stupid and silly and maybe tease and make fun of Mark at some point, but I'm drawing a blank. Plus, it's like dinner time here, and my poor wife has waited for a long time to start dinner because we're recording, and she's trying to be nice and be quiet. But, yeah. I can't believe Mark didn't plug his computer in. That seems like a really basic thing that everyone these days should know, that you should at least bring your charge cord instead of leaving it on the other side of your dwelling or office. So when the battery does run low, you just have to plug it in. Oh, he's back. Shh. We talked about nothing. Hold on one second. We're getting dinner ready. Go ahead and make all the noise you need right now. She's trying so hard to be quiet and still serve kids dinner.